The desire to be noticed and heard is something that everyone carries within themselves. In the information age, when we are flooded with information every day, to be heard, it is necessary to shout what you want to say. In today's video, we will introduce you to an art genre that allows artists to be noticed without forcing people to visit a particular exhibition, cinema, or theater. People encounter this form of expression directly on the street, walking around or looking through the window. Graffiti art. Before we immerse you in the world of graffiti, you can subscribe to the channel so you can follow our new videos. Graffiti became popular in New York in the 1970s and was a form of social protest and marking of territory. Graffiti is an inscription or drawing usually sprayed on walls in a public space. It is considered a subgenre of street art. Inspired by the idea of the global canvas of the city, artists dedicated to graffiti art began to create pieces on street walls, subways, overpasses, tunnels, bridges, train compositions, etc. It is usually assumed that this is the territory of the youth subculture because it often appears near young people's meeting points. In Europe, graffiti is most common in France, Spain, Britain, and today its capital is considered to be London. The pioneers in the genre are already professionals, participate in a number of national and international competitions, are hired to create on the various facades of old buildings. One of the first initiators of street art is Keith Haring. He is an American artist who became popular in the 1980s. Haring painted posters and created a unique artistic style through stylized human figures and signs, spreading them across the streets. Gaining fame and admiration, his drawings are exhibited in galleries and printed in albums, so he became a legitimate artist. In the 70s, when the first graffiti appeared, it had a purely practical purpose. The gangs scratched their tags on the walls of the territory. The message that those tags were carrying was, "If you enter my territory, you will have to follow my rules." Apart from marking territory, graffiti was also used to advertise a service among the criminal contingent, prostitution, selling weapons and drugs, etc. Later, graffiti has become popular among members of football clubs, supporters of a subculture, political movements and others. At the moment, the paintings on the walls have surpassed the ordinary crime and have become a bridge between the artist and the wide public. Carrying messages, symbolism, and civic position, they are one of the strongest weapons for expression among young rebels who point out certain shortcomings of society. The topics covered by graffiti artists range from urban anti-poverty protests to racial and economic themes. Many graffiti artists leave messages through bright colors, metaphorical figures, or direct representation of scenes and events. Graffiti artists themselves differ from ordinary taggers who scar public and residential buildings, churches, and schools, simply leaving their signatures. Street art is about the audience, graffiti tagging is about the tagger, who are hooligans satisfying their teenage urges. Teachers and psychologists believe that most of the tags on the walls are an expression of the desperate desire of the young generation for attention. They call them forgotten children. Such manifestations are defined as vandalism and a form of aggression, and the reasons are serious and deep. That is why graffiti is most often associated with words such as subculture, rebellion, vandalism, but the difference between graffiti art and tag is tremendous, and the root of it is in the attitude to the public.
Politicians and police in Surrey are grappling with a modern-day dilemma. Vandals are using the internet to broadcast their graffiti, and the mayor says that YouTube is making matters worse. Carrie Stephenson reports.
Finding graffiti in Surrey is easy, on vacant buildings, public utilities, and bus shelters. And Surrey graffiti is now on the popular video sharing site YouTube.
Old school buddies not doing it right.
75 videos are online, and people are watching.
Every day I wonder just how I die. Only thing I know is how to survive.
More than 23,000 computer users have clicked on this video alone, including Surrey's mayor.
It's absolute vandalism.
And the city has seen a marked increase in graffiti, or vandalism as the mayor calls it, since these videos started appearing a few months ago. She's convinced YouTube copycats are tagging the city.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Yes, without a doubt.
The city of Surrey spends more than $500,000 a year cleaning up graffiti. Private business owners, TransLink, and government are responsible for their own costs. And if they don't remove it, they're fined up to $2,000. If the people who do stuff like this are caught, they face criminal charges.
We're getting in and doing that within a 30-second to 3-minute max time frame. So
Surrey RCMP routinely patrol the internet. On these videos, they're looking for logos and signatures. Notice the hats and hoodies. It's part of the hip-hop culture, but it also makes it harder to detect who's doing the spraying. The type of paint could be a clue. It's found at the Surrey clothing store, which is also linked to the videos on the YouTube website. The owner says he loves graffiti, but has nothing to do with making videos.
If someone links a website to a video, how are you going to police the internet? That's not my choice.
This budding hip-hop artist agrees. Policing the internet is impossible. Some of his music appeared on the Surrey graffiti videos, but he says that's okay.
YouTube helps me out a lot, getting my videos out and spreading the music, so yeah, it's a really great thing right now.
24-year-old Caspian has produced his own Welcome to Surrey video, which he posted on YouTube. He's hoping someone somewhere will see it and make him a star.
However, haven't the real artists gone through the tagging phase until they develop their talent? A high school psychologist says he was very impressed by a group of children from Denmark. At first, they were chaste, but then restaurant owners began to invite him to paint the interior of the bars. Changing the attitude towards them gives the group a chance to make real art. More and more schools are giving space for such artists and allow them to paint the walls both inside and out. Among the drawings can be found impressive projects that are actually the work of young talents. Graffiti certainly revives buildings, defeats grayness. But those projects are a result of mutual consent. In Stockholm, for example, most metro stations are artfully painted and are known as the longest art gallery in the world. The colorful underground painting attracts more and more visitors, some of whom have gone specifically to see them. Just like buying a plane ticket to Paris to visit the Louvre. Such spaces give not only freedom of expression but also a new look of the city. But what about artists whose works express more extreme positions and are outright political criticism? You don't have to visit a museum to enjoy Banksy's work. The artist is known for the political messages he sends with his pieces. Banksy's personality is shrouded in mystery. All that is known about him is that he is from England and was probably born in Bristol. It is not clear what his real name is, his date of birth, and other details, as he himself prefers to remain anonymous. According to some theories, it is not even about one person, but about a group of people who act on a certain schedule. Whatever the truth, it is a fact that he is the most famous graffiti artist in the world. His drawings can be seen all around the world. Some of his works have been displayed in museums in London, New York, and even the Louvre. Most of his work is valued at tens of thousands of dollars. His Brexit-inspired graffiti depicts a man removing one of the stars of the European Union flag with a hammer and chisel. The work is on a facade in Dover, the English city closest to mainland Europe, from where ferries depart daily to the French shores across the English Channel. One of Banksy's most iconic pieces is the image of a fleeing girl from a relentless napalm attack in the South Vietnamese village of Trang Bang, accompanied by Mickey Mouse and Ronald McDonald. The artist has repeatedly criticized the capitalist society in which we live and the power of big companies. Another famous personage, painted by Banksy, is later, a maid in a black dress, who seems to be trying to clean up the London streets. The image evokes associations with the dirty government secrets of rich countries. This is the first impression from the graffiti. Banksy later tells that the interpretation is not right. He painted the maid later, whom he had once met at a hotel. Since in the past the honor of having their own portraits was only given to aristocratic and rich people, the artist decided to break the cliches and immortalize a very ordinary woman. The drawing of two boys appeared on the wall of a building in New York, but in 2013 it was removed. One of the boys has climbed on the back of the other and tries to remove a sign saying, "Graffiti is a crime." The removal of graffiti confirms that a genius artist for some is just an ordinary vandal for others. In 2016, one of the largest exhibitions of Banksy's works was organized in Italy, with more than 150 drawings united under the motto War, Capitalism, and Freedom. Among the exhibited works is one of his most famous works, a young man with a scarf on his face, which instead of a Molotov cocktail throws a bouquet of flowers. One of the author's most recognizable drawings is a skillful combination of hatred and violence with hope and love. Graffiti with the figure of the founder of the Apple Corporation, Steve Jobs, appeared on the wall of the refugee camp in the French city of Calais. The graffiti depicts Jobs in his usual attire, sneakers, plain blue jeans, and a black sweater. In one hand, Jobs holds the original Mac, and a bag is slung over his shoulder. On Banksy's official website, the photo on the wall is accompanied by a short description of Jobs, who is the son of a migrant from Syria. A black and white graffiti, presenting kissing police officers, appeared on the wall of one of the pubs in the British city of Brighton in 2005. The image, once considered one of Banksy's most famous, was later removed from the wall and sold to a private collector who requested anonymity. In 2007, photography inspired by graffiti was banned in Russia. Another one of the removed works of the artist shows 5 grey pigeons holding signs, "Migrants are not welcome. Return to Africa and keep off our worms." The graffiti appeared in Clacton, Essex, but was removed in 2014 for offensive and racist content. But the work is in fact a sarcastic view of nationalist sentiment against refugees in Britain. The girl with the balloon is one of the most reproduced images of Banksy, which spreads all over the world in all forms. An image of the girl losing a red heart-shaped balloon first appeared in 2002 in the Shoreditch area of London, on a shop wall. In 2014, the iconic picture was projected on the Eiffel Tower on the occasion of 3 years since the beginning of the conflict in Syria. In 2017, this graffiti was chosen as a favorite work of art in the United Kingdom. Banksy is the world-famous contemporary graffiti artist. In New Orleans, however, he has an enemy, again with an unidentified identity, who is about to become just as popular. Known as the Grey Ghost, the anti-graffiti activist mystically walks around the city with a paintbrush in his hand and covers the graffiti of Banksy and other street artists with grey paint. Cobra, one of the most influential South American graffiti artists, is Eduardo Cobra. The kaleidoscopic figures of Cobra are his signature and adorn many neighborhoods in São Paulo. For the 2016 Olympics, the Rio de Janeiro government asked him to paint several large panels in one of the city's most visited parts, Olympic Boulevard. The artist sets out to depict different races. The result was amazing and became one of the symbols of the Rio 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games. MEGX. In October 2011, German graffiti artist MEGX painted a 250 square meter concrete bridge in Wuppertal, Germany, turning it into a giant Lego structure. Flem. Most of Flem's works are strictly illustrative. He creates his street artwork and huge murals based on his own drawings. In fact, most of his huge wall characters come from his comics. Flem prefers to paint his tragicomic works in black Indian ink and pen. He uses color only when it is absolutely necessary to paint large murals. Since Flem appeared, he has gained worldwide recognition and is one of the most beloved street artists around the world. His street art is very exciting and recognizable. His work has also appeared in various situations and contexts such as airplanes, boats, buildings, vehicles, and many street art festivals. His style is strict and entirely inspired by his self-published comics. They are published every 4 months and he works constantly over them. In the last few years, he has made serious efforts to work almost constantly on street art. Flem really enjoys working in these spaces and old factories. He believes that the picture of the street becomes part of the urban architecture and is influenced by what is around it, unlike the isolated canvas in an art gallery. It is worth mentioning a few more artists who are either founders or those who have contributed a lot to the development of graffiti culture and became legends. Of course, it is difficult to say who is the best or to compare, because they are all unique, they have all given something to this way of expression. They are mainly representatives of the first wave of graffiti artists, but some of them continue to create to this day, turning their backs on the days when they ran away from the police and wore masks on their heads. These are the most emblematic faces of the culture that everyone guesses when they hear about graffiti. DONDI, 1961 to 1998. He is considered one of the most influential street artists of all time. He pioneered many techniques and styles that are popular to this day. He often experimented with hard-to-read letters called wild style. He did not tag himself, because his goal was to convey a clear message to his audience. His most famous work is Children of the Grave 1, 2, and 3, which is a composition of 3 painted trains. DONDI died before 1998. From AIDS. He leaves no children behind but is immortalized through hundreds of paintings and graffiti. Scene, 1961. One of the most famous street artists in the world, often called the father of graffiti, although he is not one of the pioneers. He began to appear in 1973, in the New York subway. Together with his group, United Artists, he became widely known for their colorful and large-scale graffiti. In the 80s he began to paint on canvases, his works were shown in exhibitions and many of them were owned by private collectors. Crash, 1961. At the age of 13, he began painting on New York trains, but soon after replaced trains with canvas. Although changing the surface is considered one of the pioneers in graffiti culture. In the 80s his works toured the United States in various exhibitions, bringing him great popularity in the art world. Zephyr. He started working with graffiti in 1975, first using his nickname Zephyr in 1977. He is considered one of the pioneers and together with Futura 2000 Phase 2, Cash and Taki 183 create many styles and techniques that are widely used today. Zephyr is also part of the first wave of artists who make the transition from the street to the galleries, collectors and commercial art. His work can be seen in the documentary, Style Wars. He also starred in the film, Wild Style, where he partnered with another graffiti artist Lee Quinones. He is the co-author of the biographical book about the life of DONDI. Phase 2. Another well-known graffiti artist from New York. His most active period was in the 70s, when he was mentioned as the discoverer of the bubble style. In 1972 he used this new and unfamiliar style for the first time, which later attracted many new artists to the culture. In 1974 joins United Graffiti Artists, a professional group of graffiti artists that is just beginning to attract media attention. In the 1980s, Phase 2 began publishing the International Graffiti Times, the world's first graffiti magazine. Building a classification of different styles of graffiti seems like a difficult job. Spray painting has been evolving for only a few decades, which is relatively short compared to other art forms, but this fact does not affect the stylistic richness of graffiti. Tags and throw-ups are the first graffiti styles to appear, and both generally have the name or signature of their creator written in highly stylized letters. Throw-up uses more colors, which makes them a little more complex than others. The bubbles style is a natural continuation of the two main styles. Here the letters are rounded, as the name suggests. The blockbuster style appears shortly after bubbles. The goal is to cover a large space in a very short time. It uses a frame that is filled with spray, and very often with the help of a paint roller. Wild style is one of the most interesting styles of graffiti, in which the rule applies in full force. It is difficult to read, but it is a pleasure to watch. Despite the difficulty of deciphering, for many people, this style is considered the most beautiful. The complex pattern composed of letters in combination with other forms creates dynamic and abstract images. Sometimes only a professional eye can read the message. Brush style is relatively easy to implement after preliminary preparation of the design. It uses brushes or paint rollers, which creates a smooth effect when painting. This type of graffiti does not use small details or unnecessary lines, but it actually makes their look extremely interesting and original. In abstract style graffiti, it relies mostly on complex shapes and compositions, where style, lines, and the arrangement itself is of paramount importance. There is no specific message to the observer. Instead, the emphasis is on a combination of visual effects that draw full attention to themselves. Fat cap style is characterized by the fact that it uses a specially designed nozzle, which is placed on the spray bottle. This nozzle allows a larger amount of spray to be used to create thicker lines. Stencil is probably the most popular contemporary style of graffiti. Templates made of cardboard, paper, or other materials are used for it. They are usually painted with spray paint or paint on a roll on walls and other large surfaces. The use of a template makes them easy to implement, and perhaps this is one of the reasons for their popularity. Like any other subculture, graffiti and street art have their own specific language and terms that are used only by insiders. Hundreds of words and phrases circulate in this closed society to describe the particular graffiti style and meaning of the drawing. Some of the terms are used regionally, depending on where the artist is located. Some of them have close meanings but different names. Here are some examples of the terminology used by graffiti artists. Angel. The term angel is most often used when referring to a very famous and highly respected graffiti artist who has died. Those who pay homage to these people create graffiti depicting faces or tags with the name of the deceased, as well as the date of birth and death. King, queen. Obviously, the term king is used for men and queen for women. They refer to graffiti artists who are highly respected in the world of street art. Very often such artists put crowns in their drawings to indicate their status. However, this status can only be given to them by another king or queen. Married couple. This is a very old term that first appeared in New York and refers to two subway cars that are always attached to each other. The graffiti starts on one car and ends on the other, thus creating extremely spectacular graffiti. This term is used when the drawing passes from one wall to another, or heaven spot. As the name suggests, this term refers to graffiti painted in very high places, difficult to reach. The biggest advantage of highly painted graffiti is that it cannot be easily removed. Due to the difficulty of implementation, graffiti artists managed to touch the heaven spot and gained a very high status of professionals in the world of graffiti artists. Piece. This term describes a large-scale, complex, and time-consuming drawing, usually made by professional and experienced graffiti artists. Graffiti is considered to contain at least 3 colors to be categorized as a piece. Tag. This is the most basic and most common form of graffiti. It is usually painted with a marker or spray in one color that contrasts sharply with the base. Tag in general is a stylized signature depicting the name of the graffiti artist. It is also used for a kind of signing of larger graffiti pieces. Back to back. This term refers to graffiti that is painted all over the wall, from one end to the other. There is a similar term for graffiti on trains. Black book. This is the name of the sketchbook of each graffiti artist, which he uses to draw initial prototypes of his future works. Graffiti artists use these sketchbooks to refine their style and preserve their ideas so that they can later turn them into real graffiti on the wall. If you start now and want to do some sketches, try sketchbooks made of very thick paper or cardboard, which does not allow the ink to mix and pass to the other page. Throw up. This is another common term describing balloon-shaped letters intended for rapid execution and made in most cases of 2 colors. This is one of the most popular types of graffiti, often used by a graffiti artist as a tag or signature. Whole train. The name of the term is explanatory enough and most popular with graffiti artists who paint on trains. More precisely, they cover the trains entirely with graffiti, leaving no free space. Usually, this type of graffiti art is performed by several people at the same time, because it is an extremely large-scale work. This is one of the riskiest types of graffiti because it takes a long time and in most cases is considered vandalism. You can see a lot of graffiti in the style whole train on buses or airplanes, painted from end to end. Like all arts, so in the creation of graffiti, there are skills to be learned, a lot of techniques and approaches. The angle of your hand against the wall, the distance between them, the nozzle of the spray itself, even the very surface in which the paint will be applied. Hundreds of factors on which the end result depends. Graffiti also reminds us of the clash of generations. However, the war against graffiti artists needs to be stopped. Finding a common language between the artists and the local authorities gives better results. This can only happen when people are informed about this type of art and when they understand it. Graffiti can give beauty and life to grey neighborhoods. Graffiti can express the voice of the community, teach virtues, or exposes injustice. Graffiti culture is certainly an integral part of contemporary art, perhaps precisely because it is accessible to all. The art street artists remain popular and even finds a place in art galleries as a valuable and important part of art history. If you like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, or share it. This will be a sign for us that we are doing something valuable.